I'm not feeling well. Big shocker. Yeah, same old complaints about my health. And as usual, I guess, starting off by saying a few things. I'm probably not even going into as much depth with them in this video. Probably, well, if I have enough charge, or if I try and charge my phone again whilst here, I may record another video after this. Trying to decide, there's a few topics I wanted to discuss. I'm mulling over in my head if I should do, which ones I should do first, or what. But I will state, I did end up getting that. You saw the last video I uploaded where I was correcting some stuff I said in my first Too Much Talking Twink, second Too Much Talking Twink video. Well, I got that job, and I am hating it so far. And it's I'm actually, if you saw my first Exploring Ottawa video, I'm in the elevated tunnel platform. The red and the glass, the platform that goes from the bus station to the mall, Place Orleans, here in the Orleans district of Ottawa. I'm just on the upper level of that. I was not planning on filming this video here. It's been a rough day. I wanted to wake up earlier today to film this video. I've been doing research at what I could when I could for days before this, just brushing up on my psychology and neurology, and also in relation to researching sex work and pornographic addiction and things like that, or just usage of pornography, as this video will pertain to, because it is the last day of a certain month. Anyway, got that job. I've only worked at it for 2 weeks, and I'm already hating it. Not because of what it is, like, even though it's not what I ideally want to do. Again, it's restaurant work. It's a restaurant job. I'm working as a grill cook at a Eastern Asian themed restaurant, branch of a franchise. Nothing to do with, again, I love the aesthetic of the place, is what I'll say, and, like, obviously the food that's made culturally. There's a lot of great. It's mainly of the food that we cook is mainly of Chinese, Japanese, and Taiwanese influence. Oh, and Thai as well. And there might also be some Vietnamese. Yeah, we have Vietnamese soup in place, so that would be just Eastern Asian food. That's not why I'm hating it. I'll get more into that in a different video if I do another one after this. Second thing I should say is I'm in the process of trying to gain an appointment with a new psychiatrist. Now, if I discussed somewhat in my videos while I was in Crow's Landing over the summer that I had been seeing a psychiatrist prescribe me the antidepressant surgically. And then they recommended that I go off of it. After how my psychological health had been doing, like during the time I was at my relative's cottage. Well, how it improved in their psychiatric opinion, and in mine at the time. This was also around the time when they diagnosed me with, with what is clinical depression, but the somatic symptom disorder, which also is attributed to somatic form dissociation, but the depressive states being. Another thing I should actually state though, I've been also really self-reflecting a lot, I guess more heavily the last few days. I've been doing a reflection for, the entirety of the last few months, but also, stop saying honestly when I say I'm self-reflecting, it's just part of how my personality is or how I behave. I do that constantly. Anyway, I would like to, if I ever had a chance to speak to my old psychiatrist again, because they just discharged me from their care over the summer, because I was out of their jurisdiction. I'd like to apologize to them because when you were talking about the diagnosis, I sounded very annoyed when I was talking to them, which I didn't mean to come off as, but just certain things with how the diagnosis, like naming of the conditions, I've already said I said in my before leaving the cottage videos at one point, I'm not a fan of the new name that is, what is classified as what they diagnosed me as, the naming of it is something in relation with depressive symptoms. I kind of think that from my own research of it, it's I don't think it's a great criterion. Well, not criterion, because that's for diagnosing symptoms. I don't think it's a great categorization is what I would say. But either way, it's not an excuse for me being annoyed, sounding annoyed. Wasn't annoyed at them, but I still shouldn't, I just like to apologize because I shouldn't have sounded as annoyed as I did. Anyway, and stating here as well, I want to correct quickly some things I had said in my before leaving the cottage videos I realized was hypocritical or that was wrong of me to just plain wrong. And one of them, it was the third part of the before leaving the cottage videos, I said about something about how the temporal lobe, I made a joke about how the temporal lobe controls motivation and things like that, how I've been feeling more, that was an interesting noise, more apathetic, excuse me, the last few days there, which the temporal lobe does not control. The temporal lobe does not control motivation and apathy. That's the cingulate cortex in the upper part of the limbic system within the side of the cerebrum. But anyway, I corrected that in the comments. I also, in my little rant video after a certain thing happened in the video title change of plans, getting to Ottawa a different way and the most betrayed I'd ever been. I said about how my funds had dwindled because of me buying a golf cart. That was wrong. It wasn't the golf cart, it was the side-by-side where my funds went below a certain range. And if none of this is making sense, again, you're going to have to go watch those videos, because too much to go on all these videos. I'm just going to keep saying go watch the other ones. It's quite literally, in my opinion, if I went over what happened, it would take up the length of what those videos were. Yeah, so it's quite literally too much to go over this time. I'd also like to correct, because this was a group of me, and just blatantly wrong. I said something about xylitol in that video as well, the third part of before leaving the cottage. I was talking about my fears, I'm afraid of, the scariest experience I had in my life. I said about xylitol, the sugar ingredient, I thought it was terrible for you, and how, because thought that it was, from what I had heard before, it was an artificial sweetener. That's apparently wrong. It's something of sugar alcohol base off of, substance from plant bases of plants and they're whatever controls their glucose process. It's actually more beneficial for people who are diabetic, or maybe even people who are sugar addicts, or have sensitivity to high glucose intake. So it's a better alternative. And I also just want to say, that is, reflecting on that is critical of me to say, because if you know most of my beliefs, I don't believe that I don't think certain things are inherently bad for you in terms of I don't think sweets are, obviously they're not the healthiest thing for you, it's just, I don't think there's anything wrong with eating them, because it can bring some amount of relaxation and benefit and just enjoyment of taste in that regard, within moderation, within control, unless you were using it to absolve depression or loneliness or pain of some kind, psychological pain or physical pain, that just as an emotional soother to a large detrimental extent, that's when I have a problem with anything to that extent, which will relate to what I'm talking about here. So before I get on rambling about a whole bunch of other things right now, I'm going to start talking about what I want to talk about here. Also, sorry for why should I apologize? Maybe sorry, maybe not for the echo, I don't know, as I obviously can't tell until I rewatch this whole section of the video. If the reverb in here, the echo is causing some audio distortion, in a bad way, it might help you hear me better, because I'm going to be talking a bit more quietly, I guess, in this area. But anyway, so just maybe sorry about that. If it helps the audio, then you're welcome. So what am I talking about here? Pretty well in this video, 3 things. No Nut November, the movement. The societal problems and just the problems in entertainment of over-fetishization, over-sexualization, and I guess in some regard over-exotification, which that it'll relate to what I'm talking about in some way, but more so over-sexualization, over-fetishization of really anything. And in relation to all that, in terms of pornography, is porn better with story or without? With a plot or without a plot? Yeah, somehow this is going to tie it all together, as most of my rambling, at least from my perspective, seems to. And yes, once again, also, if I have time, I want to go over like the different forms of psychological manipulation video I did, I've written out a list of things here. And I also on the back wrote out, for in case I get to this, make a video about it right here. I forgot 3 forms of manipulation, psychological manipulation. New in that video that I was forgetting. I remembered one of them while doing the video, but I didn't remember. I thought I was forgetting something, and I forgot 3. Got 3 of them. So, and I edited the description of that video for one of them that I remembered. But anyway, that'll be a different video. So, yeah. So right now, as of filming this video, it's November 30th. It's quite right at the end of November. And as November comes, so does the array of usually high school to early 20s age adolescents not come. Come on. That one's better. That joke didn't make any sense, I guarantee you it didn't. Or it was not as funny as I thought it was, and it was not worthy of any of that. But fuck you, I don't care. No, that was so stupid. Now that's egotistical of me laughing at my own joke in that way. No. Anyway, that was honestly, I think that joke beats out the Iran-Iraq joke and French fries coming from North Macedonia joke. I think it beats it out for worst joke I've ever made. Anyway. Hold on. Okay, yeah. I actually had to compose myself a minute. Yeah, my horrendous joke made me laugh that much. Anyway, okay. The moment's passed. The feeling is past. So, no, not November. Within this range of time, for the past, I think maybe the last 5 or 6, 6 years, what has progressed into more of a, I guess, cultural movement, especially in like internet culture and gaming culture, has come about, especially in more North American, well, mainly across upper North America, and I guess maybe Australia. Well, no, I mean, it branches out. Whenever I say these things, oh, yes, actually, there's other things that I gotta correct at one point. I'm gonna have to. sound better. I don't think it's suppressed. Again. Anyway, I don't know if I'm gonna keep that in my edit. I don't know. Anyway, so No Nut November started. I've realized a lot, especially when I talk about certain cultural movements. I've been saying, I'll get into this in the video, saying a lot of certain things pertaining to the Western world, or North America, Europe, Oceania, but also I do mention like how certain things pertain to other cultures in the world. Actually, this movement in some regard, not, I guess, well, it relates, I guess, there's a bit of it going on in Southeast Asia. Well, in terms of like internet culture. Anyway, so No Nut November, what is it? For any of you who don't know, what is it? It's a movement basically where, it's a movement in the sense, but also mainly a challenge where for the whole month of November, people basically try and take, like, they try to not wank off for a whole month. They try to not masturbate. That's what it is. Okay, let's acknowledge something first here. That people do it for the challenge for a variety of reasons. Some people do it as just a joke. Others do it because they either suffer from masturbation addiction or pornographic addiction, or also can bleed into like hypersexuality, like sex addiction. Or people just do it because their friends are doing it, or because everyone else is, which is more of a herd mentality. So people do it obviously, like most things, for a variety of reasons. I think, so just on the point of that, I think when talking about this, there's something that we gotta all, like, at least in my opinion, unanimously agree on. In terms of the movement behind it, what's now more of a movement, the challenge in and of itself, all of it, like No Nut November, NNN for short, or for short. We gotta acknowledge that it started off as a joke. It did. It started off as an internet meme. In many regards, in a whole slew of regards, it is still an internet meme. Like, there obviously are memes of it. So when it first started, which again, I think it was around 2016, 2017, around there, so like 6-7 years ago, when the whole joke started kicking off. That's simply what it was a joke. Most definitely because somebody thought the name was funny, as it was clever wordplay. No Nut November. But as the years have gone on, the latter half of the 2010s decade, as we know, there was in psychology and sexology, there was more information coming out about pornographic addiction and sex addiction. Well, there was more limelight, I guess, in the public eye, because the research had been there before in certain regards, and it was something that has been studied for many decades in psychology and sexology and psychosociology, but more evidence as to the effects of pornographic addiction, or I guess just pornography on people, came out more so towards, and I have to state, Actually, I don't. I do usually tend to state that I'm not saying, I don't, as you know my stance. You know my stance, you've seen the description of my channel, you've seen my other videos, you just know about me. Logically speaking, I am for pornography. I don't think it's inherently problematic. At least to a grade, I don't think it's inherently problematic. However, there are, like other things, especially things like video games or binge watching films, can become an addictive behavior or a form of extreme escapism, or in terms of addiction, dopamine booster, something. Or in terms of the same thing with excessive drug use and just substance use in general. Anyway, but point being, as more knowledge about pornographic addiction started coming into, or even just effects of masturbation, more specifically, I guess it should be masturbation addiction, started coming into the limelight of more public knowledge the latter half of the 2010s. To the I'd say like a bigger extent than it has ever really been in the past, or at the very least, the knowledge of how more modernized usage of sexual entertainment to an excessive extreme was having an effect on people. Because the methods have kind of been the same since maybe like late 2000s, early 2010s, like 2009, 2010, 2011, around there, for the most part. So as that started happening, we saw, well, most of, I guess, the world, I would say, witnessed an internet culture, known at November, going from just a silly joke to people actually kind of taking it on as like a challenge, or standing in solidarity with people who suffer from masturbation addiction or pornographic addiction or sex addiction, nymphomania. So that's, I guess, the evolution of November. And well, yeah, that's the evolution. I'm trying to think of the next point to bring up. Well, I guess I'll bring up my thoughts on it, because, well, it's going to bleed into what I'm talking about. So, what are my thoughts on No Nut November? As if anyone asked. I think that it's... I think that it's obviously, in terms of, if you're actually looking at it from a serious, like a practitioner's end, like in terms of your physical and psychological health, yes, I do think it is actually good in terms of someone suffering from pornographic, either standing in solidarity, well, just standing in solidarity is not always, well, if you don't have the financial means to, then yes, if you believe in it, I would encourage you to stand in solidarity with it. But if you do have the financial means, you should do some more actual donating to causes trying to combat those addictions, raise awareness of them, other than just standing in solidarity. But I think it's actually good for, especially for people going through suffering from the addiction. And actually, funnily enough, along with No Nut November, it's another movement that relates to healthcare, actually relating to oncology, or, well, prostate cancer more specifically. In November is also Movember, mustache November, where men or people who have the ability to grow facial hair trim it off, and just keep a mustache in solidarity with those suffering from prostate cancer, and also those who have the ability to donate some. But so I think it is good, like okay, in terms of I actually tried this. That's iffy, what I did. I think the movement is actually good in terms of raising awareness and helping people be, I'm trying to pick my words here, seen who suffer from pornographic addiction, and also masturbation addiction. However, those suffering from it, I don't like the idea of it just being limited to a month. And other people have actually talked about this as well. I don't like the... No, I said this somewhat relating to, like... I said this somewhat in my last Before Leaving the Cottage video, relating to specific months for celebration of either cultural traditions or just historical remembrance, I guess would be the better word for it, and like commemoration for things, like paying tribute to specific causes or people or anything of the sort. I'm really getting to a point where I'm changing my opinion on months or day, like, well, not days so much like holidays for like a specific tradition. Just things recognizing the historical like prevalence of something. I'm really getting to a point where I'm not liking the fact that there's a month for it. I like the actual people who are trying to give an awareness with it during the month. It shouldn't be limited to a month, in my opinion. Like societally, everyone has the right to practice it within their own times, like whatever they commemorate. It's just things like Pride Month, Black History Month. There's a Latino Heritage Month, I believe, in April. No, okay, maybe it is April. Reconciliation Day in terms of the Indigenous cultures of Canada. I believe Ramadan is a holiday in Islam. It's a holiday of fasting for a month. Fasting throughout the days in a month. I believe it's a month. Yes, it's a month, and then there's a giant feast on Eid, I believe it is. Anyway, I'm getting to a point where I really don't like that there's just months for things. I really think it should just be celebrated all the time. And I don't mean like a big extravagant celebration. I think it should just be like recognized constantly, like should be accepted in general, and not like put a heavier prevalence, like put heavier visibility on it just for a month, which I've already talked about in that last part of Before Leaving the Cottage. Like just performative activism in terms of like corporations that use cultural traditions or cultural fashion, especially in the fashion world, cultural fashion, like cultural traditional clothing, things of the sort, or just they're performative with it. They use it as a commodity just to gain profit, basically. Same goes in terms of sexuality, which I'll talk about here. But anyway, so I think it's good in terms of like people withholding, in terms of people suffering from porn addiction, to try and have solidarity with them and try and get themselves to a more stable point. But then again, there has to be some, in my opinion, some form of psychological counseling as well with that, if you have the ability to gain that. Obviously there are people who can't, but if you do, I would highly recommend that you seek psychological help, because it's not just a matter of doing it, fuck. I'm thinking about, this is another thing I have to bring up in a sec. It's not just, before I get onto that, let me just say this. It's not just like, deprivation from the substance isn't like always like the greatest form of trying to combat an addiction. Not always. Sometimes it's the only method that we have, or it's like, well, there's methods. Addiction isn't just like, getting rid of an addiction does not just mean cutting out something entirely. It's the point, trying to get yourself to where it is no longer a habitual use for you. So similar, like I suffer with sugar addiction, and I can say, like, not just from my own research in this regard, but from experiencing it, deprivation has its limits. I've lost count. I really have lost, because it hasn't been like, well, now it is a concern of mine. It hasn't been my overall concern with this whole journey I'm on. I'm also really getting to a point of hating saying journey when referring to my travels, even though it is what I'm trying to do. It sounds very self-righteous to me, but deprivation only goes so far with certain things. And, oh yes, yeah, as I'm gonna say now, about getting off that point, there's another thing that we have to acknowledge that No Nut November has turned into. And this will relate to one of my desired career paths, being a pornographer. So No Nut November, the whole movement part of it, has become two things. One, it's become trying to stand in solidarity or raise awareness for porn addiction, masturbation addiction, or as a challenge for those who are going through it, or just a challenge that people do to try either to stand in solidarity or just to see, like, if they can, to maybe test if, some people might use it to test if they're, test if they're potentially developing an encroaching urge to keep using it as like a dopamine booster. And then the other thing that No Nut November has become is a bunch of internet incels and misogynists that slut shame women and discriminate towards sex workers and say that women are also transphobia of that transgender people, demi-boys, demi-girls, non-binary people, well, to a large extent, agender people too, or genderqueer, just to slut shame these genders, to also, like I said, prejudice towards sex workers, specifically cam models and or streamer sex workers who do live streams, or not even people who aren't even in the sex work industry, who are just e-girls, I guess they would call it, as girls who are on stream. Yeah, that's the other thing that No Nut November has become, like, just either subtle or blatant incelism, like incelistic behavior. And I think most of you know this is true. Like, let's be real here, people. Like, how many compilations are there on YouTube of fucking the doomer meme template characters looking sad and depressive while watching some prettier dolled up girl or someone who appears more feminine on a computer screen crying, with fucking Jordan Peterson giving some profound speech about how porn is unethical and it is a killer to young men, all being played over the song Little Dark Age by MGMT. Great song, in my opinion, by the way, though. But, or if internet compilations of the same, of like modern, like LGBTQ plus male attire, or what gay men or bisexual or pansexual men usually wear in the community, who are more flamboyant, or more feminine in a way, and just saying how men dress now. Then it cuts to like the 1920s, like shows of like gangsters from the 1920s, like what is it, Peaky Blinders or something, and it's like how men dressed in the 1920s. Policemen swear to God. You know that's true. You know that's like, it's just, that half of the movement is just pure insecure misogyny and just sexism. You know it is. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry, it is. And again, I'm open. Anyone who wants to debate me on that, please do. I'm interested to hear the other side of it and what I'm missing, or if I'm being a little too biased on that. But it really is like, one half is like genuine support, the other half is just an excuse to berate people who do porn or watch porn, or are more pro-pornography, or just the female gender in general, or transgender people. It's just they use the movement as an excuse to do that. So that's what I should be, so yeah. Okay, well, those are the two parts of it. I guess I should, like I just said, I should maybe from my part, I should acknowledge that those people are using No Nut November as an excuse for that. But either way, that's the two halves that you see a lot of during this time on the internet. And so, as I've said, my stance on No Nut November is that I actually think it is good for, like, not even really, it's not even the fact that you participate in it, it's just the knowledge that I guess, again, to raise awareness of, or educate people more so on the potential risks of developing the addiction if it goes to an encroaching level. However, okay, so, and for mine, and I'm actually going to be honest with this, I decided for this year, I did it somewhat last year, I decided, okay, I'll just try standing in solidarity with people, as I don't have, right now, I have how I'm trying to conserve my funds for most things. I don't have, like, a not to give dubious amounts to causes. I haven't donated to any. Here's the other thing as well. I haven't actually. Now I'm looking back. I think I've only, in my entire time being alive, only donated to one organization that was dedicated to addiction rehabilitation for those suffering from pornographic addiction, because my morals, or my logical moralistic stance, I have issues. Okay, I really do like the work in terms of the rehabilitation, many rehabilitation methods that certain organizations have tried to do, what I'm remembering correctly, in terms of psychology and sorts. However, most of the organizations fighting, at least in Canada that is, fighting to try and help those suffering from pornographic addiction, also call for the abolishment of pornography and sexual entertainment as a whole. Some in the legal sense, which even if I was against sex work, I would say no, it is still your human right to choose that, and you can't police that to a large extent for adults or older teenagers. And then the other half is they don't call for legal abolishment, they just call for like social abolishment of it, which again, I don't get behind them. I don't agree with that, and I don't like this like one-way argument towards, as I've said with everything, I don't like one-way arguments to things. That especially relates to sex work. I hate the one-way arguments. So, I don't know why I just stared off into like over to the highway there for a sec. Might be because of that blinking light. Okay. Anyway, so I've only donated to one because that one, I can't remember what the organization was, but it didn't call for either the legislative, like governmental or societal, like socio-political abolishment of porn or anything of the sort, or engaging in platonic intimacy or hookup, like engaging with prostitutes and things of the sort, or polyamory, especially with the ones who are discriminatory towards polyamorous people, which really is, that is, in my opinion, unjust alienation. So, anyway, so what I'm getting at is, I attempted to do, I already failed, I failed multiple times, because this month, like, okay, this might be too much information. No, actually, no, who cares? I'm already stated, like, I'm more of a sexually promiscuous person, and this is my channel, and I don't, obviously I take care for other people's concern, but like, I don't, it's not too much information. I've already talked about how I'm tired of people's, like, tabooness towards sexuality, and especially when it relates to ageism, I'm really tired of people, like, really, really tired of that. I'm really tired of the taboo nature towards these things, and a whole slew of other things, but, so this month, okay, I failed once on November 2nd, because I was getting in the mood for things, and I was like, yeah, okay, I want to, and I did, and then literally after it was done, I was like, oh wait, it's November 2nd. Oh yeah, it's November. Completely forgot. In fact, I think, I said this when I was in Byron Market in No, it was part 8. No, I think it was... No, it was part... When I was in Byward Market recently, a group of guys passed by me and they were like, "Lest us not forget, brothers, we stand strong." And I was like to them, I already forgot. So, anyway, so that was one thing. And after that, I was like, no, you know what? I'll just stop for the month. Why not? I didn't do it as a challenge to see if I was addicted or not. But I was just like, you know what? I'll stand in solidarity. Then I started, things were getting very stressful, like, around me recently. Like, well, November 2nd, I went downtown and, like, did all the shit down there, and then went into Gatineau, and, back, and then got a job, finally, yeah, it just got stressful, and I started reflecting on things and contemplating, like, because again, this relates to my moral crisis. I was wondering if standing in solidarity was really just doing, without donating, was that doing anything? Now, obviously, that doesn't mean, like, just because you don't, like, obviously, just because you don't think standing in solidarity with something doesn't mean that you have to go off and start jerking it again, obviously. Which, that wasn't why I was reflecting on it. It's just, with everything else, I was just like, I said at the moment, screw it. I'm not going to stand in solidarity at the moment. And then a few days later, because of just, I want to relax, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Which I did. And then for the latter while, I did. And not obviously to a large extent, not every day, of course not. That can be a big red flag of addiction if you're engaging in it every single day. And if it's affecting your social activities. And as I discussed in my second Exploring Ottawa video, the methods for possibly detecting porn addiction, which were the, and also one for helping you enjoy pornography better, which I'll probably get into in this video as well. Oh, also, what time is it? Okay, I'm fine. I was like, screw it. I didn't want to stand in solidarity at the moment. And then obviously got certain days I did the act. And then after that I was like, I reflected again and I thought, you know what? No, I regret not standing in, I regret not just putting it off. Again, I didn't feel I had to. Like, I didn't, if you're depending upon something and having the constant urge to, that can be a very big red flag of, like, either you having a psychological factor of possibly trying to absolve loneliness with it, because I do believe we are all internally lonely, or potentially used to absolve, like I said, psychological pain, or in the physical sense, addiction can occur because of raised neural functionality in the striatum of the brain, which is the pleasure zone, and also controls feelings of desire, and also would also control it also controls technically, well, no, the frontal cortex. Actually, I believe, the striatum does play a part in hope. Well, what would be considered, well, because a desire for hopefulness would play a part. Anyway, trying to brush up on neurology. This last little while I was learning about seizures, focal and generalized, but which which I didn't actually, I had heard the terms, I didn't know before. I knew about like what a seizure was, the overstimulation of electrodes within the neural cortexes of the brain structure or the nervous system. There are different types of seizures, and also plays a part in a lot of epileptic seizures. Well, there are many seizures that are stem from overstimulation of the vagus nerve. But anyway, I learned the difference between focal and generalized. Anyway, overstimulation of the striatum, and also the nucleus accumbens is part of an addiction too, and romantic interest, and just sexual. Well, striatum and nucleus accumbens play a part in just sexual development and sexual desire in general, and romantic desire. Anyway, so it can act as, like, if you're using it as a dope, well, you could be using it in terms of the whole absolving of psychological pain, could be using addiction, like, well, the substance or whatever it may be, in this case, well, not really physical, but substance, the thing as a dopamine booster for pleasure. Dopamine is the neurochemical. Excuse me. I also just had Mexican food before this. It's a nice, never been into it before, a Mexican restaurant down there. That it's very, very nice. And a lot of really great Mexican style artwork from, well, it's heavily inspired by Day of the Dead, the Day of the Dead celebration in Mexican culture. Anyway, point being, okay, lost my train of thought there for a second. Okay, point being, once I reflected on that, I was like, no, I should have, I regret not just waiting. I regret not doing that. And after I had reflected on that, it was a few days ago, well, not a few days, about a week ago, I was like, no, you know what? Okay, until the month is over, and probably a little after that, I'm gonna wait. And then I got insomnia, which I've been getting a hell of a, it's another reason it's been so stressful recently. I've been getting a hell of a lot more insomnia than I ever have before in my life. Here, the last little while, I had bouts of it when my neurological problems were at their height. I was back in Toronto. I had bouts of it at points, and I tried them. Bouts of it at points, and well, I used different methods to try and shut myself down. Well, because insomnia can be caused because of stress or because of overproduction of glycogen from heart structure. Well, glycogen, is it produced? No, it's not produced. No, glucose is used for it. Glycogen in the bloodstream that makes its way to the brain structure and keeping, well, stimulating your reticular activating system, and I believe as well your hypothalamus, and just keeping you awake. Lack of tiredness, basically, keeping you from becoming drowsy and being able to, your consciousness being able to shut down for the night. Just overstimulation. And lack of or also lack of production of melatonin in the brain structure from midbrain. Anyway, I think get off the touch. So when the insomnia happened, I was like, God damn it, no, I want to sleep. So I tried that stimulation, and well, and I didn't just do it because of like, I didn't just do it like, okay, as it's just a general thing. I obviously got into the mood of how I enjoy sensualism and sexual pleasure, so I got into the mood of it and then tried falling asleep. And it was ultimately pointless because it didn't work. It wasn't pointless, I genuinely enjoyed the experience, it just, I didn't fall asleep. So, makes 5 times throughout the month. But anyway, so in terms of, I could go on, I guess, a bit more about the challenge in and of itself. Bottom line is, I think it is good, those that aren't calling for the abolishment of sexual entertainment and those who aren't being performative with it and not actually caring about, like, not caring about, like, the purpose of the movement, I think that's an issue. And I'm glad if it's a method that helps you, I'm glad for you. I'm glad that it can help try and get your consumption of whatever you're doing down to a moderate rate, or if it's better for you to kick it for you entirely, then help you kick it entirely, the habit. But I know, like, you cannot deny that. Okay, this is what I said before in my Before Leaving the Cottage videos, and as I've said pretty well, and I also said in my Peterborough videos. Actually, as I've said quite literally multiple times over the course of me doing this channel. I hate the one-sided arguments of this is entirely good, this bad. No, not at all. Sorry if my points seem a little, like, dulled in this. I think it's not only because I've been having a very bad day, bad little while, but it's because I've explained my thoughts on this, my logical thoughts to this. Like, it gets to a point, like, okay, I'm gonna say this. For those of you slut shit, okay, this is what I actually feel heavily with addiction, especially in relating to pornographic masturbation or sex addiction, or in some relation cocaine addiction too, and also, I guess, heroin addiction. Just addictions that can be very severely detrimental. Which actually, there have been studies that show that porn addiction is almost as detrimental physically as cocaine addiction. Again, I have no problem with someone doing cocaine in general. Relaxation, possibly increase, it has been shown in some doses to increase your productivity in some ways, and creative thought process. However, going to an extreme extent with that, it can cause mass problems. I'm getting really tired of, like, I think a lot, and this is why I said in that last video of me being at the cottage, where with my addiction to sugar, I'm not going to project my one experience with eating sweets to the entirety of it. And that doesn't even just go for addiction. That's too many people project their one experience, one or a few experiences with people or a thing or just whatever it may be, as the entirety of that thing, or as if it pertains to every single person in that situation. And that's completely unfair and a generalization, like a mass generalization. And I'll talk about that more in a different video, like more in depth on that. But, and I really mean that for everything. But especially in regards to addiction, too many people, I feel like, they go through, actually, it's not just in regards to addiction. It really isn't. Too many people go through, in my opinion, a very, like, turbulent and destructive and emotionally taxing time in their life with one thing, or maybe even a multitude of things within their own circle, and too often they just attribute that to the entirety of every experience relating to that thing. Too often. Especially with addiction, I think it's because a lot of people, with how severe addiction can get, around psychology, or again, more specifically to treatment of addiction psychiatry, it can make, once people overcome it, I think a lot of them can get very overly egotistical and very overly confident and self-assured in their experience, and they just blindly, like tunnel vision, this is the way, this is wrong, you should not be doing this, or it's bad for you, stop it. It's like complete one-sided argument. There's no other input. Like, they will not hear another input. And that, again, that doesn't just speak to addiction. Some of my favorite content creators on this platform, I actually feel kind of, for as great as their content is, and for as much as I love them as people, or like them as people, or think they're okay, but they make good content, too many of them I really do feel are just like, no, one way, this is the way, this is the thing, this is how it should be done. I'm tired of this and this and this. And so therefore, to combat that, we must do this. We must, and there's no other possibility out there. No. That's so... in terms of psychology and personality, then in my opinion, that's an A-type tendency, which also I'm doing research into psychology. I just learned, as I will say at the beginning of another video, as I want to splice in a clip that I took of a wine bottle that I found funny, that I learned about that certain personalities are clustered into two different clusters, A-type personality and B-type personality clusters, but there is the disorder, A-type personality disorder, which is associated with being very rigid with how you present, well, your cognitive thought process out there, when in terms of your beliefs and what you, in terms of systems or social systems around you, very exact. Apparently there used to be, it used to be classified as a B-type personality disorder, was, I believe, what was that one? Oh, it was avoidant personality disorder is what used to be classified as B-type personality disorder. Okay, so it's now called avoidant personality disorder. Also, I think I'm going to do as much with the psychological manipulation videos. I think I'll try and do, if I'm feeling up to it, a video. I think I'm going to try and do more psychological and neurological videos on this channel, and well as doing here, as I already talked about, sociological issues and geocultural issues as well, like stuff relating to culture and things of the sort, or sexological videos like this one, and entertainment. I'm gonna try and do that. But anyway, I think there's too often, again, as I've said multiple times now, not just in terms of addiction, but in terms of this, what it's pertaining to right now, too often in terms of addiction, people go through like very much strife, a lot of strife with a lot of painful physical and social strife with becoming an addict to things. And I talked about this like the false narrative that is like most often put out there in society, in multiple societies around the world, especially. Okay, there is undeniably a lot of prejudice towards psychological health in the Middle East in terms of like societally. There's a lot of prejudice towards mental health and psychological health in general, and addiction in some regard in Middle Eastern countries, and also in Eastern Europe, heavily in Eastern Europe. And in terms of psychological health relating to gender expression, especially in South America, there is too a lot of stigma around that, especially in relation to like toxic masculinity, and to what I would consider in some regard toxic femininity, which yes, I do believe also exists along with toxic masculinity, just the same as I think racism in terms of all backgrounds, color, and also culture exists. Same with nationalism, and in relation to racism as well with colorism. But anyway, point being, I talked about in the the fifth part of Exploring Ottawa, about false beliefs of drug addiction and in relation to homelessness. But it's just so often people really want to feel like this, I guess, relates philosophically to people searching for meaning. They really want to feel like, yes, what they went through was horrible. They really want to feel like they've achieved, they've gotten over, like they've beaten and gotten over something really destructive and just horrible all around, which yes, you did, in a sense. Well, yes, obviously it's good that you overcame something that was causing you so much harm. But you can't just, morally, in my opinion at least, and I don't know if people could really figure out, but in a sense, yeah, I am philosophically, this is another, I just rewatch these videos. There's the damn memory problems. I don't remember if I said one of my logical philosophies is that I am a moralist. I do believe anyone who makes, yeah, I actually, no, didn't I say that? I swear I said that. That, I hope that's not a false memory. No, that's a scary. Anyone who's taking, like, anyone who says that something, that you really shouldn't be doing this, yeah, you're a moralist. You are a moralist if you're saying, no, you shouldn't be doing this. That is inherently putting your moral belief onto someone, not forcing on like a legal sense, but in a social sense saying, yeah, you should be doing this. If you are an anti-moralist, you would be saying, no, my morals are my morals, and you do whatever you want. It doesn't matter how terrible it is or how beneficial it is, you do it. That is your moral choice. I will do my morals. Like, I don't think people like claiming that they're not a moralist when really, yeah, you are a moralist if you're saying that you really shouldn't be doing this. That's invoking your morals onto them. So yeah, I am a moralist in that regard, because obviously there are things that socially I think really aren't the best to do. Though I think it is your human right to choose that, I don't think it is the best for you to do. Legally, again, I'm logically a libertarian and a communist, but in terms of the libertarian sense and democratic, I think there should be like only a slight limitation on what people can do in certain regards legally, and the government just fuck off and policing systems. But even so, that, like, not being an anarchist, if I was an anarchist, then that would be really saying, well, there'd be no law and order, and that's, well, in anarchist theory, like, the second that somebody becomes authoritative over someone else, whether it be legally or socially within a relationship of some kind, then that is no longer anarchy. Which you are right, yes, there is no longer anarchy in that sense, but you would have to be an anti-moral, well, not really, I guess maybe you could be a moralist and be an anarchist, but socially I'm not for anarchy. Actually, no, yeah, socially in regards, I operate libertarianly, where basically I set for in terms of just setting boundaries for yourself is technically in some form libertarian, not anarchist. If you really were an anarchist in like relationship anarchy, I guess, and like a social anarchist in some way, you really wouldn't be able to set a boundary. Like setting a boundary, like, hey, we'll be fine with all this, but just this one thing, if you cross that, then I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to say stop. That's in some form libertarian in my belief. Like, and as I've said before, there's a thin line between like libertarianism and anarchism. It's a very thin line. But anyway, enough of that rant. Back to addiction, and specifically porn addiction. It's I don't like the one-way arguments. I really don't. Especially because for someone who's polyamorous, in a sense like me, or more sexually promiscuous, pornography, strip dancing, prostitution, sex work in general, sexual entertainment can really help someone. It can be good in terms of helping them understand themselves, and also just for their entertainment and relaxation, and for representation of the human sexual form and sensualism. And it's not even in sexually arousing entertainment, just standardized entertainment as well. You can as I said in my skit I made, not all sexual representation in standardized medium storytelling is negative. It's not. There is positive ones, and there's like ones that are meant to represent the character's relationship and their passion for the people around them, or the people they're engaging with. It's not all meant to represent an addiction or someone trying to absolve pain in a certain sense. Which there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion, like trying to represent that. And I think there are fantastic, like, I think there are fantastic stories about, there's many fantastic stories about people who go into the sex work industry because of psychological trauma in their past. What are ones that I can name that I actually would really recommend people, logically, I think we should check out? Okay for Film. Greg Akari's, what's his last name? Greg A's Mysterious Skin. That's a really great film, and he's a very prominent director, I know, for like, what was it called? The new queer era of cinema for LGBTQ plus films. I have seen, I think, that might actually be the only one I've seen by him. No, I think I saw one more, I can't remember. But easily, I love that film. That is a fantastic film, Mysterious Skin, detailing about how the effects of acted upon pedophilia onto a child can cause severe detriment to their future. And it shows two different perspectives of one boy who during his budding homosexuality was sexually molested as a child by someone who was either a pedophile, like it was an acting pedophile in whatever context, or had what I guess I would call pedophilic mental disorder, because unfortunately, I think people need to acknowledge that pedophilia and hebephilia are sexual orientations, and they're the only three, like scientifically, the only three that I think should be repressed. And that's sad, but, well, it's not sad that, it's sad that, you know what I mean. It's, cutting back, it shows one perspective of a boy who was abused and goes into prostitution at a very young, starts prostituting himself off to older men at a very young age, and how that affects his life. And on the other hand, it shows a child who developed to be more asexual, became very reserved, very a bit more antisocial. I don't think well, maybe more leaning traits, antisocial traits, maybe antisocial personality disorder, I don't think entirely. But anyway, it shows the two perspectives. It's a very great film, that's one I recommend for that. A character that I really think is a good representation of abuse within, well, the character hasn't fully been developed yet, so like, because the show has been on hold for the last, I think, like what, 3 years, has been Hotel, the character of Angel Dust. I've really been loving, one of my favorite shows has now become Blue the Boss, Dipsy Pop's stuff with that show. I think it's incredibly well written, and but the character of Angel Dust could be one that, well, represents how, actually, they're a good representation of like abuse that happens in the sex work industry, in terms of the video, of the music video Addict, which I highly recommend people go watch. I know Dipsy Pop has gone in a lot of drama recently, or controversy. Some stuff I do believe, like, that she has changed in regards to that. Others, I'm waiting to hear more evidence of it. Others I downright don't think are true based on evidence that has been shown, but okay, I don't want to fully speak on it. I don't want to say Angel Dust is a good representation of like someone who was abused in, I guess, the living world and then went to sex work or was never, from what it seems to be representing, Angel is more of a narcissist, or more narcissistic, maybe has narcissistic personality disorder, but is very prideful, very arrogant, and kind of egotistical. No, not entirely. Narcissistic, yes, but egotistical, well, yes, they can be. He can be, yes. Definitely more lustuous, a very alluring character. But with how Dipsy Pop and the team advertise Angel Dust, especially their merchandise around Valentine's Day, which is meant to be more sexual in a way. Okay, I'm really gonna be disappointed if that. I've also changed my stance. I said in my Made It to Ottawa video how I don't think really disappointment and feeling disappointment can happen much. I think I was maybe being a bit. No, I think that was an idiotic stance of me. I mean, in a certain sense, no, it's not very. I don't really think people should dwell on someone feeling disappointed. I think anger is what you should really look at if someone is angered by what you did, or saddened by what you did. However, I think disappointment can be probably helpful. I was going to say something similar, I guess, with being proud of someone, but anyway. I don't know, I don't want to really say disappointed, because that's would be hypocritical of me to say. It's going to be very jarring and not make much sense if they show that Angel doesn't have any enjoyment of pornography or the sex work industry, because if he went towards it because of abuse or neglect from not having affection from people around him, maybe earlier on in the living world, and developing a sense for acceptance, maybe in a more histrionic sense, I guess, or attention seeking, I guess would be a better understanding of that, wording for that. Then they really should not be promoting him in the very much sexual Valentine's Day merch, or just in the merch how they portray him sometimes. They really shouldn't. If they didn't do that, then I would be all for the character turning out to be that way in their representation. If not, then that's not really. They really should not be doing that. At least in my opinion, that's hypocritical in my opinion. Quite, because I don't have actually no. Let me keep on topic with it. Let me bring it around to something else, because we're at an hour and a half right now. I have a list here for a damn reason, so I'm not gonna let it go to waste. And so, okay, so I've gone around and around talking about smells nice. People walking by, one of them just went to me. Anyway, I've gone around and around talking about, no, not done that. So, solidarity is good, at least logically, I feel. But the misogyny and blatant shaming of sex workers, and just the defamation of all sexual entertainment is not. I don't agree with that at all, and I think it's detrimental. Okay, now swinging on to a different part of this topic. In relation to that, specifically in relation to pornography and just sexual entertainment in general, whether it be strip dancing or I guess phone sex could be one as well, or cam modeling of any sort, which technically is pornographic, or live stream sex work, I guess, would be. Or just sexual representation in just entertainment, like standardized entertainment, like storytelling or things of the sort. I think something I wanted to talk about with it is because I remember when I said in my Peterborough videos, I was talking about in relation to sex work, how there are people who, what I was calling then fetishize actors within the industry of, in pornography, and also fetishize strip dancers. Excuse me. There are people who, at the time, were saying fetishize them. I've changed, and I'm thinking I should probably edit the description of those videos. I changed, because I talked about this in my Before Leaving the Cottage videos. I changed my mind on, I realized I shouldn't be saying just merely fetishization or sexualization, because I don't have a problem with most things being fetishized or sexualized in some sense, because if we look at it, it's things like in pornography or just sexuality in general, that pertains to things like nudity, or wearing more revealing clothing is not, I don't want to say provocative, because that's not right wording. Just wearing more revealing clothing is not inherently sexual. It's not. And people over-sexualize many times people in the LGBT plus, and also women, for wearing less clothes or being naked. They can also over-sexualize men in the sense of, and people more masculine features. Ow! That was my jaw. It's over-sexualizing of their bodies in that sense. So what I want to make the distinction of is over-sexualization and over-fetishization. And I want to talk about that because it's undeniable that in a lot of the mainstream porn industry, there is over-sexualization and over-fetishization. Not of the industry in and of itself, not the thing in and of itself. And there's also objectification within sex work as well. It's not inherently objectifying in my opinion, but there is objectification in it. Which I'm going to say here, I think a lot of people get confused. What is objectification in that sense? So, I don't think a lot of people really actually understand. First, I want to say I don't think a lot of people understand what the definition. And I've been learning as well a lot more from certain YouTubers I've been watching, which I would agree with in some sense, that a dictionary definition of something, or like a linguistic definition and connotation with words, both matter. However, in terms of connotation, and I think I've said, in terms of connotation of a word, I've said this, no, I didn't really talk about it in my social constructs aren't innately problematically, I don't think. Well, maybe I did, but it was a very minor point I made. Or maybe I'm just misremembering it, but I think in terms of the correlation with a word, it shouldn't be the word that's the problem. It should be the sentiment behind the word that's the problem. If someone's using a word specifically and its definition is what they're using it as, then that should be the problem. Then the word is the problem. But just merely using a word to mean something that it doesn't mean isn't the problem. I think the sentiment behind the word is the problem. So in terms of yada yada yada, that's a different topic. Objectification. What is the definition of objectification? Portraying someone as an object, as a piece of property, basically, as if they are an object you can buy, own, and sell, or like you own. That's objectification. Which you could say, well, Cam, though, you're paying for a porn if you're paying for the service, or in sex work you're paying as like a commodity to use the service, so isn't that objectification? Well, then if you believe that, then everything is a freaking objectification. Retail workers putting their labor out there is an objectification in the sense because you're paying for their service. Well, retail if they're helping you. Or in restaurant workers like waiters and things of the sort, you're paying for their service, so that would be objectification. Or, this is something that I really, really hate. I should have brought this up in my skit, but I didn't think of it. I really hate when people say, like, in terms of arguments against, like, sex work, like, I don't think you should be selling your body for money. I don't think you should be putting yourself out there, like, for money. You better stop watching movies right now. You better stop watching plays right now. If you want to remain, like, philosophically consistent, or morally consistent in that regard, you better stop watching anything with actors in them right now, because that's exactly what they're doing. They are putting their performance, physical performance, out there for your entertainment for a price in terms of if you're, well, unless they're doing it for free, but in terms of the economic system, because we need to get paid in order to sustain a living in pretty well every facet of major life. No, there are people who can survive on their own in many regards, but there are those who can't, in terms of resources needed. So if you hold that stance, you better damn well just stop watching entertainment right now, anything with actors in it, because you are paying for their physical performance. You are. They are selling their body for your entertainment. So, yeah, I don't want to, it's a bullshit argument, is what I'm saying. Like, it's just, anyway, but in relation to that, there is, in my opinion, over-fetishization and over-sexualization of the actors. Not all, that's actually why I have a list here, for most of these. There is over-fetishization, over-sexualization of people in the performance piece of the sexual art. And I want to go over, like, what I think, why I don't have a, okay, so I mentioned how I don't think that, okay, so let me go over what, for people who may not know, or from my opinion at least, like, what do I consider over-sexualization or over-fetishization? What is, where is the distinction made? If I don't have, like, a problem with just something being sexual or being fetishized, where is the distinction? And in this regard, I can relate it, let's do, okay, in terms of what I would consider over-sexualization, in terms of, okay, well, let's use what we're talking about right now, pornography, sexual entertainment. In terms of sexual entertainment, let's use just pornography right now as the example. Sexualization would just be the characters or just the actors being portrayed in a sexual manner, being shown in intercourse or in oral sex, in fellatio, or in some form cunnilingus, or just oral sex, or I still need to learn the term for limb sex. I keep calling it hand sex, whatever the technical term is. Just it's being portrayed in the sexual form, in that, right? Just purely like engaging in just a sexual act, or showing the sensualism of something. But that's sexualization in and of itself. What I would consider in terms of, so the actors being portrayed sexually, over-sexualization, I would consider in pornography to be like, let's say there's, let's say, I'm trying to get my words. Let's say it was, oh, no, here. Okay, I got it. That. If, God, brain's full. Why do you have to come at the worst freaking times? Oh, okay, yes, here. So, over-sexualization would be if, like, say there's a scenario where, two actors are portraying, characters in porno that are, let's say they're teachers, and they're in a classroom and they have to, the scene is taking place within the classroom, and they're talking to each other very lusciously for something that isn't inherent, like, that's a nice pencil you have there. I wonder how long it is. I hate doing that. I hate, because that's what I would consider over-sexualization. You're over-sexualizing something that isn't, you're portraying something that isn't inherently sexual as, not as sexual, just more sexual than it needs to be. Like, in a story mode, like in terms of a story for porno, I don't have any problem with the characters being teachers. I have a problem if, like, well, this actually relates to this can relate to over-fetishization. I have a problem if it was honing in on that, where, oh, yeah, my phone is dying. Where, like, over-sexualization, I'm trying to gather my words right now, would be portraying, oh, okay, no, here's a good way to put it. Be portraying something as if it is, like, inherently sexual. That could be, that would, I think, be a good definition. Well, that is, what I'm saying, that is, yes, being inherently sexual and overly lustuous with how it's presented. Like, as if, portraying it as if that thing in and of itself is, well, innately sexual, which, well, obviously for really anything other than, really anything other than sex isn't innately, anything other than sex isn't innately sexual. It isn't. But there isn't a problem with it being, is what I'm saying. And in terms of, oh my god. I just realized that teacher example kind of rings true to a recent scandal in the American state of Arizona regarding a teacher and their OnlyFans. Moist Critical did a video on it. Okay, that had no inspiration from. Oh, sorry, that had no inspiration from that. At least consciously, knowingly, that didn't have inspiration from that. Maybe I should talk about that, and maybe I'll put that on at the end. But my thoughts on that whole scenario. So that's what I would consider over-sexualization, is portraying something as if it is by its nature sexual when it isn't. I don't have a problem with it being sexual, but overly, like, in terms of like teaching profession, if they wanted to make the characters teachers, fine. Like, you wanted to send in the classroom, well, okay, well, I don't, okay, no, if you want to make like a bit of fantasization of like a story of someone sneaking around like an office or something, fine, like a bit of more of a thrill seeking, like portraying more to a bit of a thrill seeking tendency with that. But if you just, let's just say the characters are just teachers, let's not even make it, okay, if it was, let's just not even use the classroom as an example. If it was just them as teachers, like as their like professional occupation, as career, they're portraying the characters as that in the porno. That I have no problem with, as the characters just being teachers. But when you start portraying it as if teaching in and of itself, like that being teachers is this very erotic thing, that's when it gets into territories of being overbearing, at least in my opinion. Again, I think legally, freedom of speech rights and freedom of expression, people, well, okay, within certain small reasonable extents, people have the right to portray whatever they want. In my opinion, they have the legal right to, and though socially I don't think you should, you obviously have the legal right to do that. You have the legal right to over-fetishize and over-sexualize whatever you want. Okay, well, yeah, in terms of portraying it, just portraying it, not actually doing it, you can, like, portray it in that way. I have a problem with that, obviously, but legally I don't have a problem with that. I think it should be their human right to make that choice, critically think and make that decision. Or just, whether they critically think or not, just to choose that, if they choose to do that. But, anyway, now, what would I consider over-fetishization? Okay, let's use an example just purely of the actors in pornography, which is not just over-fetishization in this regard, it's dehumanization of the actors, in my opinion, which is why I don't like how so many people only look at people in sex work. It's again with this one-way thing. One side, it's people who completely bash the industry, people in it, for either just being involved with it and having no sympathy or empathy for them at all, or completely just attributing them to a stereotype of being sexually traumatized, which there are those who are, many who are, but not all of them. I'm gonna jump to actually one quick thing here. I want to say this whole thing of the stereotype of like the sexually traumatized porn star. I think we can make the argument that many like actors within mainstream Hollywood or Bollywood or Nollywood, many of the major film industries of the world, I would say like the most major, there are many actors and performers who have been traumatized when they were young and go towards that industry for gratifying attention, or because they develop egotistical traits or egotistical personality disorder or narcissism, or they're histrionic and care about their image and want to be seen as like they care about fame from others in some sense. I think that's fair enough to argue that there are many who do, not all, and there are many who don't, but there are many who very obviously do, and also I would argue that there are many who are, well, sociopaths, but anyway. And also internally depressed, or have a dissociative disorder maybe, but anyway, or have domineering behavioral disorder. Okay, anyway, back to the point of what I think is, in terms of portraying in pornography, over-fetishizing the actors. What would be considered over-fetishization and dehumanization from my stance is if you were in the act of the sexual act, filming the sexual act, if in the scene you were specifically honing in on their genitalia, you're specifically honing in on their sexual organs as the main form of entertainment, or their ejaculation as during the climax bits. If you're specifically honing in on that, that is over-fetishization. That portrayal, and again, I don't logically think that they're to blame. I don't think this isn't, I should preface this though, that this isn't, when I've talked about how my beliefs are, that I don't think someone can be socially held responsible for how someone interprets their art, because it's not in the immediate in their life. I should preface, that's not an excuse for artists to just, in my opinion, portray things however the hell they want, like with no care for who or what they're representing. I don't mean it like that. Obviously, if it's a bad representation, it still sucks. And now why I don't say that, because maybe there was mistakes made in pre-production and even in post-production, during the production, and maybe the original writers, or maybe something in terms of the original vision got convoluted and like messed up along the way, and like the person who does it at the end of it doesn't like what it turned out to be, but that's how it is. However, I hold them socially responsible if they actually portray something in that certain way and actually hold the belief to that thing is that way in their social life, and that's in their immediate life. So I blame them for that if they go off and have that belief and they hold that stance in their immediate life. But anyway, fetishization there, which is dehumanizing, is focusing on just their genitalia as like the main form of entertainment, or just like or focusing solely on their nudity, like being the entertainment. I guess I can put it. That is what I would consider over-fetishization of the actors. Now, what does just fetishization look like? Fetishization is just having in terms of having a sexual interest in something, having a more, what's the word? It's getting cold out. Neurological problems are coming up. What's the word? Well, it's having a kink and a fetish is just having more of a preference, I guess I'll say, towards, I don't know if preference would be exactly the right word, but preference towards a certain sexual act, or not even a sexual act, just a thing, having a sexual preference towards this certain thing. Like, and in terms of like just sexual acts, it can relate to things such as bondage, foreplay, well, sexual interest towards genital stimulation in certain ways, fetish towards wearing an wearing an outfit while being sexual in a certain way, or well, yeah, you can relate to that. Some commonly known fetishes, I guess, in terms of like sexual acts are like dominatrix, being more domineering in a sexual relationship, masochism, which is the sexual fetish towards some form of pain being induced on you, or you have a fetish towards yourself being in a bit of discomfort and pain. And my phone is at 5%. I'm going to have to charge that. Where could I get a portable charger? I don't know. Anyway, no, come on. Okay, fine. It should last a little bit. Or sadism is the fetish of you inflicting some amount of pain onto someone else, which can get encroaching in some regard, which is when I would consider over-fetishization comes into play. Those are the different, those are some more common ones that I know. There's a whole slew of others that I don't even, well, I can go, I don't have the time, it seems, to go into right now. But, in fact, actually, I wonder if I can just hold my portable charger for a minute. Actually, okay, anyway, point being, that's fetishization, and that was an example of what I would consider over-fetishization. And so, another example. Oh, here's an example that I talked about in my last part before leaving the cottage. How I think it's over-sexualization when companies or advertising agencies use sexuality just as a means of profit, like just for trying to sell something, pretty much. They don't actually care about the sensualism or the sexuality that's being portrayed. They just want to use it as, well, basically just a commodity so that it can entice someone to buy something. In terms of, that's a bit of marketing psychology there, I guess. So, yeah, that's what I would consider that. But out of all that objectification, over-sexualization, and over-fetishization, I don't believe that pornography or sex work in and of itself is that. I think a lot of people get confused on what the definition of pornography is. What is the definition of pornography? The definition of pornography is entertainment or film of some kind, a video or a film that is made and produced and portrayed for sexual arousal and stimulation. That is the definition. There's nothing in the definition solely of pornography, strip dancing, prostitution, or sex work of over-objectification and control of someone's body, or the over-sexualization and honing in on somebody's physical features or abilities just, well, for the user's entertainment, I guess. It's not inherently that. And I think logically, I think it can be done. Well, obviously it can be done without it, at least logically, I feel. But, so yeah, I think people really get confused. I think people really need to stop, people really do, you gotta stop attributing, they've gotta stop attributing sex work to just, they gotta stop attributing it to all just degrading like the actors in it, or just preying upon the people who take use of it, which, yeah, I know a lot of people can obviously be, well, it's not okay, obviously, as I said before, what is the percentage, please don't, 4%, I'm gonna have to plug this in. In fact, actually, why not do that while I'm talking? Okay, yeah, it's not confirmed. I know everybody on this planet is flawed. I've said it a million times before. Oh no. Oh, thank God. This is half a burrito from the Mexican restaurant. It didn't spill. It opened up, but it didn't spill. Okay, thank God. Oh yeah, this is the, I don't think I ever showed this. This is the portable charger I have. Okay. Everybody's flawed. The world, at least logically to me, can never be perfect. I'm questioning whether the fuck it can even come close. If we'll all just keep slipping back into despair. Gonna work? You are. Okay. Alright. That's good enough method. I will do that. People just really gotta think. Like, if this isn't gonna keep going down, is it? Okay, anyway, off of that tangent, in relation, actually, that actually kicks off into the other bit that I wanted to talk about. Well, talking about how people are flawed, that was in relation to it. That's in that regard, okay, so what I've done so far, challenge of no November and the movement, as well with it, porn addiction overall, over-fetishization, over-sexualization within the sex work industry, and how it is a problem, I do feel, but that's not inherently the industry in and of itself. I think people need to stop conflating the two. But on top of all that, in relation to what I just said about how people are flawed, and some people just don't have the knowledge to know about things in relation to this. Speaking of that, it comes to the last bit I want to really talk about with this, is that in relation to people. Okay, so this part right here is going to be, I guess, just for people who do enjoy sexual entertainment, and specifically pornography. So if you don't enjoy that, or if you're addicted to it in any sort of sense, you might not want to, you probably don't have to listen to this part, but for those who do, I've been wondering this question in relation to, like, I believe you can portray logically human sexuality and sensualism and help people with self-sexual connectivity and portray sexual investment with pornography. But that being said, is it better to do that with a written out storyline or just portrayal of, like, a sexual act without any sort of character development, characters written in for a plot of the porn? Is that better? Like, which is better? Are they on par with each other? Is what I guess would be a good question to ask. And, well, this is the way I guess I've been thinking about it. Check quick. Oh yeah, it's called good. This is a good method. This is actually a good method for when I'm doing this. Just holding the damn charger while it charges with the cord dangling down from its port. Someone coming up here. The elevator. I've been one. Is that something up here? Okay, I guess not. Some sort of mechanism just turned on and it's making a sound somewhere. I've been questioning this because I'd say, okay, half of my favorite porn creators do mainly just physical work, that just portrayal of sexual sensualism and just sexual acts without a plot or a character attached. Then the other half do actually have some sort of written out storyline to it. And now, though, in relation to where I'm coming in with this is, there are things that I definitely don't think, I guess, another part that I should have clarified with the last half that I was just talking about, is that, well, in terms of over-fetishization and over-sexualization and all that, I should have clarified it. There were things I said. I said most things I don't have a problem with being sexualized or fetishized. However, I do think there are some, I guess this can come to as a double standard, that is positive double standard, or non-negative double standard, as I would call them, I guess, is that there are definitely some things that should be, I feel, off the table. Specifically what? I've been thinking about this one, and this one here, I'm just going to throw it out there because I don't really have any answer of my own for it. Maybe someone else can provide it to me, like, in discussion, but I really don't know. I'm thinking about it, but in relation to, like, job occupations, they're just, well, careers, I guess. I'm sure, honestly, I've seen people make adult films that personally seen it. I've seen adult films where they do things similar to this. And they're not, it's not terrible. The centralism of it is genuinely fantastic in my opinion. How it's portrayed the human sexuality of it. However, fetishizing an occupation is, I'm gonna say right now I don't know. I'm sure there's someone, I'm sure it can be done well. I'm sure there's a way to do it well. If I was to ever get my my career in pornography off the ground, if I one day deem that to be good to do, or if whatever comes out of what I find on this trek, I could never pull it off personally, and I don't know. If someone wants to chime in about that, feel free, because I don't know. But here's definitely one that, in my opinion, a fetish that I hate, that should be left off. It really should be left off the table. I'd much prefer things being done on the table before this being put on the table. Boom, bazinga, I made up for that horrible joke at the beginning. This one, the school student fetish, I hate that. Specifically, or more, it can be either or, whatever gender it is. Student fetish, I hate it. And most people would be aware of the whole schoolgirl fetish. I hate it. Again, you have the right to portray it, in my opinion. I think that is definitely a fetish that is detrimental, that cannot be done well. Now, again, like I said,